Okay, I think we're good to
Here we
go. Hey, everybody. My name's John Myers. I'm here with Michael Pearse, and we're on episode number 2. I know we've done a lot of them on the MAREI podcast, and we're here with Stephanie Parris, and she is with Guardian Accounting Services. Welcome, Stephanie.
Hello, thanks for having me.
And we'll get into it here in a second, but just wanted to talk about what we're gonna go over. Obviously, she's up there in the accounting services, so she works with a lot with the real estate community and small businesses. And there's a small act that came out that everyone knows about, the CARE Act, and I'm sure she's been really busy with that, helping everybody with small business loans and helping them through this mess. So she's here to tell us about a good summary of what's going on and how maybe you can go ahead and qualify for any of these loans and hopefully, have it benefit your business, because I'm sure everyone's affected. So you want to go ahead and tell everybody about yourself, your business, and then we could go into the CARE Act.
Absolutely. Well, as you said, I'm Stephanie Parris with Guardian Accounting Services. I provide outsourced accounting and consulting services for small businesses and across the country. My specialty market generally is real estate and construction, just kind of where my heart's been. And been doing it for over a decade now. So just keep trying to serve the underserved small business population. So.
Sounds like there'll be a lot less of them maybe here in a few months if they keep holding out on the economy.
Well, that's what they're saying. But if I have my way, we'll save as many as we can.
Right, for sure.
Seen a lot of governors with pressure today. I don't know if you saw that.
Say that again?
A lot of governors have been under pressure today from the higher ups.
Yeah, I mean,
release the quarantines.
It's a mixed bag out there. I mean, you got a good portion of the community that wants to, be on standby and put businesses on hold. So, obviously the virus doesn't spread. But, I mean, you got to be in the shoes of a business owner and people who can't work from home. And, it's really affecting the economy. And every minute we wait to delay them getting back to a job or providing income to their families could definitely get disastrous. So
absolutely,
there's a huge rush for these loans and the stimulus that's coming out. Go ahead and start with, I know you did some presentation for some other small groups that you're part of. So go ahead and go through it, and then we can just interject with questions that we think would benefit the group.
So we'll start with the SBA loans, and what I will premise this with is that, like in Kansas City, 75% of the small businesses don't qualify for these loans. So there are other options, but do you know that the most of American small business do qualify? So just bear that in mind. The one that seems to be the most common right now for people to get approval for is that you'll hear it referenced as the PPP, the Paycheck Protection Program. And that one, that's the one that's got a lot of caps. It's capped by lender. So Bank of America, Wells Fargo, your bank has a very specific lending cap. That one is probably the easiest to pull together. I think the one I did over the weekend took an hour and a half to pull everything together. That's one where you'll want to make sure that you have all the payroll information for the last 12 months, which means Q2 through Q12 of 2019. So April 1st to December 31st, and then January 1st to March 31st of this year. If you let anybody go, that can have an adverse effect on you. However, you can get that back if you let them go to get by, but then you get approved and you rehire them during that period, that you have some forgiveness there. So there's that piece is pretty fluid, and that Those loans are capped at 10 million, but it's ultimately what you get is 2.5 times your monthly payroll spend. So that's annualized. So if you're a seasonal company and say summertime, spring and summer is probably better than the dead of winter for you guys, then they take that that payroll spend and spread it out evenly for 12 months so that they can make sure that they're compensating that. 75% of that award has to be spent on payroll specifically, but the big part and the reason this one is so popular is if you spend it in that 8-week period after you're funded and you spend it appropriately, that can be forgiven. That loan can be forgiven. So if you don't spend it all at the 75% for payroll, then what's left, what isn't forgiven, is at 1%. That's a pretty magnificent loan, for lack of a better term.
And when you say forgiven, you just mean there's no interest on that portion, right?
No, I mean the total balance. So you get $100,000 loan, say 80% of it's forgiven, then your loan now is only $20,000. The SBA is writing that lender, the bank, an $80,000 check. You're good.
Interesting.
Yes, that's why
Okay.
that one's gotten a lot of traction. Wells Fargo had hit their lending limit for it the week before last. And on that Friday, it opened up. By the end of the weekend, they'd hit their limit, but they released that limit. They increased it. Some of your banks, if you have a smaller bank, but they're an SBA lender, use them. And we've had I've had 4 of the 5 people that have filled out for it since the first day it was released have been approved and have already picked their funding date. So they're moving really quickly on this one.
Oh, so some people are already approved and ready to go?
Yeah, they've already got their funding. And with that one, the other nice part about it is you get to pick your funding date in that. So maybe you guys are full, you expect to start back up May 1st. You find out, this week that you're going to get funded. You can set that funding date for May 1st. Or maybe you're affected by the quarantine. Maybe you can't show houses right now. Although the virtual thing makes that kind of a moot point. But pretend that you can't show houses, then you can set that funding date for when you can. So then that begins that process then.
Right.
Which is nice. That's helped a lot of your retail people and your restaurant small businesses. That's really helped them that they don't know when they can open, but you have 8 weeks to use those funds properly. So you want to make sure that 8 weeks begins at the right time.
Yeah, that's definitely something you don't want to, pay interest on or anything like that before you definitely need it.
Yeah.
So it sounds like that a lot of people need to apply with a local bank, right? It's not something you could just apply directly with the government.
You can apply at SBA at their website. The thing is, they have been so overwhelmed. If you already have a banking relationship with an SBA lender, your odds of getting approved and the time involved is so much better. So, if you're already banking with Bank of America or Wells Fargo, go through them. And a lot of banks are SBA lenders. I mean, we have, there's a small one, Citizens Bank in Lee Summit is, banks I never thought of would be. Yeah. There are definitely SBA lenders. So you do want to make sure that it doesn't hurt to ask them.
No,
they're making money.
No, that's they're getting all their fees definitely paid for. It. That sounds right too, because I talked to a local contractor and he said he applied 2 times through the website and he was denied. I told him, hey, you should be applying through your local bank. I know US Bank, Academy Bank, Commerce Bank, I'm sure all those
Equity.
All those banks are probably have online forms where you can go out and fill it out. I mean, it's just probably 1, maybe 2 questions they have about just numbers, but everything else is just kind of question based. So it doesn't seem that hard.
No,
Nothing that your CPA can't provide you one or two
exactly.
items to do. I'm
Exactly.
curious
And
to
you
see
may
if any of
have it
them.
all.
I'm curious to see if the money's even still left. I mean, I know they had to get in, thousands and thousands within the first day or
They
two.
did. Well, the system
Sure.
got locked up the first day on that Friday.
That's about right. Sounds
Yeah,
right.
they said that it'll be the Friday of infamy. Uh, but at least in my world. But it did. It shut down. Several of the bank websites were shut down. Like I said, Wells Fargo hit their cap. BOA went to, just because they're an SBA lender, people, if you didn't have a bank relationship with them, they wouldn't touch you
Yeah,
because they're
yeah.
like, we're overflowing. We can't.
Um, I had a friend apply through Academy Bank, and he didn't have a business relationship. So as soon as they applied, they essentially get you started on like a business account. I mean,
Yep.
they're pretty quick at it, because obviously I wouldn't think they would send it to another bank. They would just deposit it into their new account. So that makes
Yeah.
sense. So most likely you would have to apply, at that bank you're having them.
One thing to remember too, if you're funded with that, because the payroll tax piece is so specific, it can only be used for state and local payroll tax, not for your federal. Not for your federal unemployment. So the FUTA, the FICA, and the Medicare, Social Security, and Medicare. It is a good idea to make sure that those funds are held separately, or at least very explicitly tracked, because what you don't want is, you don't want those funds to be used for your federal taxes that you have to pay on your employees, and then you to catch in some trouble later.
Interesting.
So you're saying that you'd have to separate out you'd have to allocate that into, or as the owner, you should keep track of that. Okay.
Yes, you explicitly want to keep track of it. And you should be able to with any accounting system, but you want to make very sure that you're able to show that your payroll costs were that X amount during that time, and that cost does not include your FICA and Medicare, which is like 7.65%.
Okay. Is there any advantages that, let's say you're a real estate investor, but you don't have any employees? Can you still try using that loan for your advantage, or no?
For the PPP, you can't, because you do have to be able to show that you have payroll, unless you have, there's been some gray area for 1099 contractors, like if you're an investor and you have a construction company that works for you or something. There's been some gray area on that, and there's not been a lot of guidance. The problem is, the reason there's not a lot of guidance is because that company then could apply. So they've been it's very messy. So I wouldn't apply for that one. That's the one you would want to do the they call it the EIDL, the Economic Injury Disaster Loan, through the SBA, which again, your local bank, they have that application. It's a little different, the requirements for documentation, but it's the same premise. That one takes longer to process. You're looking at 3 weeks on that one, and not like a week to 10 days.
Okay. What happened if, let's say you're paying yourself to be as an employee? Can you use a loan on your own income then?
That you could, if you are set up to where you, like, if you're an S corp and you are paying yourself a reasonable wage, absolutely, then you fall in that window. If you're a Schedule C, so if you're just a single member LLC and you run it on your personal tax return, you can't, because a Schedule C can't legally have payroll for themselves. So
cool.
That's a good question. It's a really good question.
Yeah.
And one thing to remember too is it's gone back and forth. If you get the paycheck protection, as to whether you can get that economic disaster loan. They've been back and forth on that, and the guidance has flip-flopped. So I would be really cognizant of that, whichever one you apply for. If you've got payroll, I would do the payroll. Just my personal, I would go with the payroll. It's a faster process. It's an easier process. And granted, you have to account for how you spend it, but it's, it's up to, what is it, 80-90% forgivable? Yeah, I would do that.
And I think, did you mention that if you have multiple businesses that have payroll, could you apply multiple times?
Yeah, it's because it's under the different tax ID numbers,
Gotcha.
and that's how it's all
Okay.
driving. Yeah. The one thing that it gets kind of messy with that paycheck protection is if you're an S corp, say that you and Michael have an S corp together, but you're as shareholders, you have separate companies that are shareholders versus you guys as individuals. Then you have a little bit extra supporting documents it asks for, but otherwise it's pretty straightforward.
Okay. And you said there's the second, is there what, like two main types of the SBA stimulus? You said the
Yeah.
PPP, and then there's the normal SBA loan that
Yeah.
includes that disaster $10,000 grant type thing.
That's great. It's the economic injury disaster loan. They call it the EIDL. And what happens with that one, it takes 3 to 5 weeks. They're trending in the 3-week spread, which is good. But so once you get assigned to a loan person in the SBA, then you're eligible for that $10,000 grant that you mentioned. And that grant is kind of a bridge. It gets you by from the day that you've been assigned and approved to the day that you get all your paperwork together and you get your final approval and funding. That $10,000 is to bridge you through, and it's forgivable. So it's granted funds. You don't have to pay that back. The nice thing about the economic or the EIDL is that, again, that really low interest rate, but it's not as regulated for what those funds are for. So it's regulated it's for your utilities, your payroll, it's for everything to keep your business going because you obviously have had an impact from this craziness. So that one's a little more work on the front end, a little less work on the back end than the other.
And then are the interest rates similar for these, or is interest rate a little bit better for the PPP?
They're showing the guidance that we pulled this morning still showing the same interest rate at 1%. So
Gotcha.
Since it's been declared a national emergency.
I didn't know, obviously that it's pretty fluid. Could it even go up to a couple percent? Like I've seen maybe up to 4, or is 1 the standard? I don't know how that fluctuates.
It can. I've seen it go up to 4, and the one though that's the most common that I've seen go through is like a 2.65%. So that's what the last round of the economic, the EIDL went through was 2.65. Since this one is, so the EIDL is a loan that's always around. But what's happened, because this has been nationally declared, they've changed those interest rates, and so they've dropped them, and they've broadened the scope for what's available as far as the dollar limits and the funds available from the feds. That's really expanded, but this loan is always around through the SBA.
Oh, okay.
It's pretty interesting.
That was new.
Yeah, I didn't know until all this. I was like, wait a minute. There's another one that they have, just like a bridge loan, which is much like the grant. But so they do have a bridge loan under normal circumstances too, but they've kind of pushed the two together for right now for this.
Gotcha. Okay. Let me see here. Michael, did you want to ask anything before I think we're maybe going to some unemployment stuff?
No, I'm pretty good. I think you covered a lot of good information.
Sounds
good.
good.
Yeah.
Let's hit up some unemployment stuff. It sounds like that for the first time we could get some stimulus for the 1099 people.
Absolutely. I'm glad that we are doing it in this order, actually, because the unemployment. So the great thing about the CARES Act, one of the things that it implemented was $600 a week federal unemployment. And so most states, we as 1099 contractors or gig workers or self-employed, we're not eligible for unemployment unless we draw a specific paycheck. So because we are not eligible, with the CARES Act, they wanted to make sure that, again, they help serve some of the smaller business. So right now in every state, they have enacted to where those federal funds are available. And what they're allowing is we go in and file just like you would normally, if you were a W-2 person, go in and file. And you may, for another week to 10 days, it may still show that it's not available, but it will be. So if you go ahead and set up your account, then once it rolls out, then you can, then they'll enact that part. So then now you're eligible for $600 a week with, and most states, I know in this area, for sure they have, but most states have waived that waiting week too. So Kansas expects next week for it to be available on their site, and Missouri is supposed to be this week. And so even though maybe it takes 10 days after you get it and get your approval for it to go through, they will backdate it. So it's not like you're, yes, it may take a minute. Yeah, you're not losing out on anything. So it's a really big benefit for a lot of folks because, we're all driven off of everybody else. So
yeah, exactly. Everyone is definitely connected. And it's good that you mentioned that it's backdated because, as you know, we had, I don't know if it was like in the tens of thousands people file for unemployment.
Yeah.
So the unemployment website crashed and, it's on the news, people trying to call in. Obviously the lines are slammed / disconnected phone. They couldn't get on to register. So that's definitely good. It sounds like they'll get it. It just it's just a matter of filtering everybody through the system and waiting for the federal funding.
Right. And the other thing that they do say with that is try not to get on there and set it up during peak hours because of that crash. They think they've got most of that resolved. And I really think every state's had that trouble. But
someone should tell the government needing money is always at peak hours.
Right. It doesn't matter. It is, yeah, we all need it. But what your peak hour may be different than my peak hour too. So that's always a relative term.
Yeah.
But they do, like after 7. And so you do have to set up like, I don't remember the name of the exact portal in Kansas, but in Missouri, it's called U Interact, the letter U and then the word interact. And so if you go on and set that up, it'll flow pretty well. And then you can, and that one, like I said, as of this morning, it still wasn't rolled out.
I think it's getkansasbenefits.gov. I just clicked on it. Site offline. So that's a government. It's government.
Ouch! Really?
Shutting down.
That's what it said.
I'm pretty sure it's getkansasbenefits.gov. I'm pretty sure that's unemployment.
Let me
see if you can get it.
You're right. That's exactly it.
And that's why we don't want the government to do websites.
Maybe they're loading it. Let's be positive. It's all about perspective, right? Let's see.
That's true. Hopefully, it'll. I guess that's how you calm down the people. Just tell them it's all fine for now.
Absolutely.
But yeah, I mean, it sounds like either way, people will be able to get funding, so that's good.
Well, and one thing to think about too is that if you are working, if you work this week but not next week or whatever, you're only claiming what you're paid.
Right.
And what you've earned during that period. So, maybe you do work 2 weeks and you don't have any activity for the next 2 weeks, then it's there to bridge that gap. So just, you obviously want to be honest about what you claim and what you've made, but also be cognizant of that it can make up the difference,
And this one, unlike the stimulus, is taxed.
Correct. So this one is ultimately, it's just going to increase your taxable income. But remember that when you file your taxes next year, that you'll have an additional form to be watching for. Don't forget to add it in because that'll flag you.
Yeah, I'm sure they'll send it to you just like a W-2. Say like, here, this is classified as income. You get to pay tax on it.
Yeah, you get like a little postcard in the mail to go online and pull down the 1099 for it.
Yep. Another thing too, I'm not sure if you heard of it. My CPA recently sent me a non-filers free
The
file.
portal.
So it sounds like that's a direct way to get a stimulus check faster, right? If you haven't filed for like 2019 or something, or
That's actually not for 2019. That's more for, say that you have a, your kiddo didn't have to file last year, but this year they're old enough to file. So
okay.
they can put that in there. Or really who that's impacting is anybody who's made less than that 12,000-ish mark, that wouldn't normally have to file a tax return. Because if you make less than the standard deduction, you don't have to file a tax return. So they can put their information in there to get that credit. Or a lot of folks on Social Security, if that's their only means of income and they're under that threshold, they don't have to file. So they would go ahead and put that information in, and that'll get that process going for them.
Yeah, it seems like a little bit expedited way. Are we
Yeah.
still looking at what above 75K
For an individual?
pays out, or you get none, and then 150 for joint filing?
Yeah, and it'll start phasing out, and as an individual it phases out completely, I believe, at 99.
Phasing out as in they have some guidances on you'll get less than the, was it 1,000 or 1,200?
1,200.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think it's every $100 you make is $5 less.
$5 less. Yep, that's exactly
Yeah.
what it is.
So it tapers
Okay.
off.
Okay.
Yeah, so they'll reduce it.
And then 500 if you have a child.
So it has to be a qualifying child. It can't just be a child. So they have to be under 16
Okay.
to be a qualifying child. So,
Can't go just pick up children, Michael.
it's probably frowned
Thanks for the
upon.
advice.
Saying, but
Kids.
if you have, but here's the kicker: if you have a kid in college that you've claimed as a dependent, you don't get to claim. They're not a qualifying child, but they're also not eligible either for the for
Double
say they work. Yeah, it's like it goes back to what we were whining about earlier about that big gap in there.
Oh yeah.
There's a gap of people that are not going to be served. But this is that part of the CARES Act and the stimulus is really good for the people who don't make a lot of money or the people on Social Security. Those are going to be the biggest.
Some other people benefiting. It sounds like that'd be it. Seniors and maybe people who are already getting it, they can make this as a bonus onto what they're getting now.
Yes. So that would definitely be the case. Like if you have, a married couple who together maybe make $100,000 and they've got 2 kids under the age of 16, then they're going to get their $2,400 for the 2 of them plus another $1,000 for the 2 kids. So then they could potentially get $3,400.
Yeah, that could definitely work out for some people.
It could. One thing, and I know I mentioned it to you both earlier, but that if in 2019 your income was high, so maybe you only got a portion of that because you phased out. Let's say you got $700 of the $1,200, but then for 2020, this market, the pandemic's impacted you, so you go down under that 70,000 or under the 75,000. Now you are at you can get that other 500 as a tax credit on your next year tax return.
Is there a benefit to waiting if you are going to make more in 2019?
I don't think so.
Okay. I didn't know if they just go off.
I think they go off your 2019 AGI.
Yeah.
Adjusted gross income.
So, and that's the bottom of your, well, depending on what form you're filing. But so it's the AGI, and the AGI is impacted by, if you have W-2 withholding or if you have W-2 earnings, but also, as if you have real estate, then, your Schedule E, your Schedule C, anything that you would have, any S corps or anything like that, you can reduce some of that.
Yeah. So that is nice, I guess, for the real estate investors out there taking deductions, right? That'll bring
it will be.
Yeah.
And it sounds like, and again, I've not been able to get good guidance from the IRS yet, but it sounds like they're going to allow some other deductions that they wouldn't normally have allowed for for this coming year. So that'll be nice. And that, they're saying charitable contributions, they're not going to cap them like they have in the past. And some of the other, there were a punch list of them that they're trying to adjust and kind of shift, if you will, to give people like us, the smaller business or the real estate folks, some opportunities to maybe take advantage of what we didn't with the stimulus.
Yeah, there's a qualified improvement program. And then there's the 5-year NOL carryback. We just have people just ask their CPA about it.
Yes.
Could possibly, go back to get some extra deductions that you weren't able to get.
Yes,
So,
which would be nice.
Yeah, for sure. It's always good to have options.
It is.
It
most certainly is.
So you see stuff pretty fluid right now. It sounds like, accounting services, CPAs, everybody in the tax world is seeing new information every day. Is that still pretty fluid out there?
It changes. That's the first thing I do every morning is check my email to see what changed overnight.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's one reason, it's my belief as to why the IRS hasn't made it super clear, like the stimulus, because it is an advanced tax credit. But how's that going to impact? Because that's the same wording that it was in 2008 when the housing market, the housing bubble burst, and they did the stimulus package then. And so it reduced a lot of people's tax refunds. So because it's so fluid, I think that's why we still haven't got a lot of really good guidance. We've gotten guidance, but not from the people we need it from.
Right. What they've extended taxes to sometime in July.
July 15th.
15th. Do you recommend, just because of the daily changes in fluidity, to maybe wait closer to that time versus file now and amend? Because it sounds like even though the government may owe you money, it may not be worth it because you have to amend it. Plus, they might not get you your refund anytime soon anyway.
Well, I actually don't. And the only reason I say that is because what you're filing now is for last year, for 2019. What we're talking about is actually, that's changing all the time, is actually for 2020. So it's two different tax years. I've heard people say that refunds are going to get slowed down. But, a lot of that's done electronically, and a lot of that's done without, if it passes their algorithms and everything in their system, it's just done without human interaction. So I've not really seen anybody, any hold up for that.
Okay, interesting. Cool.
Yeah.
Well, that's good.
I mean, I think if you're paper filing, which I don't know anybody who paper files anymore, but if you are, I think
out there.
Right. I think that would be the one that would be the hold up, because obviously they're working on a reduced crew and everything like that. But most everybody else, it's still going, it's still running pretty smooth.
Sounds good. I know you might not know, because I don't know if it's really news out there yet. Is there inclination of some future stimulus here? And have they said who it's maybe for?
That is still in the works, and they are talking about around 3, because we had the Families First Act, which was the first one, and then the CARES Act. So now they're talking about around 3, and they're as of I think yesterday, the last I had read was that they're obviously, how many times did the CARES Act take going up and down and get destroyed and taken apart? So that's going to take some time, but they are also trying to follow with the trends for how long they expect this to go. It's like the Washington Post just wrote an article last Friday about how Ohio, because they were so far ahead of it, and their governor faced a lot of backlash for being so proactive, but they have a third of the cases of 2 or 3 other states that are their same size population wise. So part of that's gonna hinge on how long they expect this to go out.
Gotcha.
If they say, hey, we'll be all back to good by June 1st, then I wouldn't expect a third one. But from what they're looking like and what the World Health Organization's saying, it's going to be more like fall. So before things really start to kind of come back. So I'd expect around 3.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I heard some news. I don't know if it's true. The mayor is maybe thinking about extending the quarantine, at least in Kansas City, for like 3 more weeks.
Through May.
Uh,
Yeah. And he was, but he's in such a conundrum because he, obviously wants to protect the community and its residents, but he's getting a lot of pressure from the governor, who's obviously getting a lot of pressure from the president and anybody. Yeah. So it's really hard. And I was literally just having a conversation before I jumped on with you guys about that if he fights too hard, then he gets less support from the governor. If the governor fights too hard, then our state gets less support from above. So it's kind of how do you keep all the plates spinning and keep everybody happy?
Mm-hmm.
But I think, we're so far behind, we can't do like the Netherlands did, as far as just protect the compromised people. So we're too far behind that. So I don't know. I think he's going to have to extend it. And he's pretty, he doesn't really seem to mind to ruffle feathers. So I do expect he'll extend it. I love that about him. He's one of my favorites. But I do think he'll extend it because it's for the greater good.
Now, does that, and I'm not totally for sure. So if they have like a federal mandate that it's over, do we have to, I guess all the business, do they have to follow like city mandate? I thought it was the other way around, but.
Yeah, it actually comes down. So yes, the feds can say, hey, it's over, but if the city has a mandate, then the city has a mandate. Kansas City had the mandate before the state did. Jackson County, Cass County, Johnson County, Kansas, they all had the mandate before the state governors did it. So.
Okay, well, let's see. Let's hopefully get it going. We're wasting our summer.
We are. Well, think about the kids. There's high school seniors that I know that they did a whole big thing. I don't know if you guys saw that on Friday, where a lot of the Kansas City schools and the surrounding areas put their field lights on at 8:20 for their football fields, because that's 2020 and military time. And they just kind of wanted to give some support to the kids because their senior year's kind of not so good now.
Hey, shoot, at least they get to be at home the whole time. And I know every parent's not homeschooling to the best of their ability. So it's like a start of a vacation. So
yeah, ours is like college online. So that's what she's doing now. She's a senior this year, and so she has to get up, and she has like this for her classroom, and she curses every morning when she has to do it. But
is she liking it more than going in?
No, she's a social butterfly.
Okay.
Yeah.
I
guess
it depends.
Yeah, and I think it does. And if your kid's super
it's
social,
great for the introverts.
It is. It is. They've been training their whole lives.
The exact moment.
People love working from home. I mean, at first, I think a lot of people weren't accustomed to it because they might need someone to tell them like, "Hey, you need to get this project done." But after a while, they're like, "This isn't too bad."
I've been doing it for 3 years and I love it.
Yeah. So once you do, you can't go back.
Yeah. I always say that. I'm like, oh, what would I do?
I guess there's a price for everything, though.
There is. And it's gonna shake itself out, I'm sure. It's just gonna be a matter of trying to save as many small businesses and as we can. It sounds like though that the housing market and the feds are even predicting it. The economists are predicting that this area, the housing market, shouldn't be feeling it too bad. It looks like we'll be okay. We'll be one of the last to hit recession even when that comes.
And you're saying mostly us being in the Midwest.
Mm-hmm.
Similar to it was before. Yeah, I know. I mean, I'm in the commercial multifamily syndication space, so we've definitely been feeling it on the commercial side. It's been tightening up. Maybe not as much on the residential, but definitely on the commercial side. A lot of lenders have stopped lending. A lot of contracts got canceled. So
Yeah.
it really affected it there. Maybe not residential because I mean it's not like we see 2008 deals come through the MLS. So everything's still pretty expensive. So
Yeah.
we'll see how it is a couple months down the road because obviously we'll get more data and we'll see who gets bailed out. But yeah, it'll be less of a effect versus the coastal areas for sure.
Absolutely. And I think the multifamily is going to end up coming out ahead because if when the bubble does burst, I mean it's recession and things happen and it's going to happen. But that's usually what happens though, is people then have to go to that multifamily housing, the people who would
Yeah.
normally be in residences. So
Yeah, it should still hold true from recession or even let's say this pandemic. People still need places to live. People
Yeah.
who lose their homes still need to find housing. But obviously there's a limit to everything, and I don't think we're there. But it'll be interesting to see what happens for sure.
absolutely. We'll watch it play out. I know I keep telling everybody I've used it to teach my kids that I've been saying it for a year that you need to be prepared for what could happen for a recession. And I'm like, I am ready to take advantage of contractors reducing their rates. And
Yeah.
like I'm waiting to put my pool in until I know.
Sure. I'm seeing a little bit of it. There's contractors there that have had stalled jobs, canceled jobs. So I think you will have some time to pick up some assets, whether it's some real estate.
Yeah.
Maybe if you're buying a car, I guarantee you the dealers out there are willing to strike a deal with you if you need a car. So I think
sure.
you got a window because there is a lot of money going to be entering the system. There's going to be some huge inflation. So I don't think it's going to last forever because the government printed much faster this time. So I think there's a window to take advantage of some stuff. So we'll see for sure. But that's where, like you're saying, savings is huge because, all the smart money, they always have a stockpile of cash to pick up, failing businesses,
Yep.
Real estate deals that fell through, and
Absolutely.
that's how they get prepared for the next bubble. So
It is. You just position yourself to thrive in it. And, it doesn't make you less of a person or it doesn't make you a bad person by any means. It just means that, you worked a little smarter and you're making your money work for you.
right. I'm kind of curious to see how it does changes people's savings attitude because like I always say, we have really short memories. So I assume we'll spend everything, leverage to the max pretty soon. We'll see.
I think you're right. I mean, that seems to be the American way.
I mean, it's not like this is our first financial disaster, right? I mean, how many have we had in like the start of humanity?
Exactly. You're exactly right.
Open up a book and be like, oh, apparently we've had the Great Depression already. And
Yeah, darn.
so many decades we have one, but
it's the ebb and flow. It's business cycle.
Right.
They teach you that. So it's a matter of whether you want to accept it or not.
Sounds good. Michael, did you have anything on what we're talking about now or closing? I was going to get into maybe a little bit about the accounting services and what she's doing right now for businesses.
I don't know. Right now, I don't have any questions. I'll jump in there if something comes up.
I didn't want to. I know I'm jumping in here, so I didn't want to talk over. If you had anything to add, for sure, feel free. All this stuff's pretty interesting stuff. So the businesses that you work for now, just wanted to, kind of close on this stuff. What are you? So obviously, you recommend applying for the SBA loans. How do you go in depth a little bit more on how you work with the real estate people, like small business contractors?
Sure, we do. I actually do a couple of things. One thing, as you go into these loans and stuff, or any loan for that matter, you want to make sure that your financial records are in good shape. You want to make sure that they're put together properly. If they're not, and that's typically what a lot of what I'm seeing right now is just some quick cleanup. Your credit card balance should not be a negative in your QuickBooks, or, make sure your loan statement balance actually matches your loan. Things like that we kind of overlook. I did before I was in the industry too. So that's a lot of what we're doing, is just kind of going in, doing a quick cleanup, getting it in order so that you can put out good financials for two reasons. One, they're going to have financial people looking at your reports. So you want to show that you know what you're doing, but you want your financials to tell the story, the right story, So that's generally the bulk of what we're doing at the moment, besides just my regular clients that, we do their monthly accounting, make sure that we have all their financials ready to go by the 15th of the month. That's the bulk of what we're seeing. The other thing I would say, though, is you don't have to have an accounting software. Just make sure that you're keeping good track, because that's the other piece that seems to be getting people, is there's not a lot of transparency. We go through the motions. You know what's in your bank account. When's the last time you actually reconciled your bank account? Most people don't, So that transparency is really important. And now's the time, as I mentioned earlier when you guys and I were just chatting, that my business has taken off, because now's the time people are like, I really need to know where my money's going, And so is it tough sometimes to pay for somebody monthly? Yeah, it can be. But at the same time, now you know where you're bleeding. You know what projects are making you money or what you're losing money on. That's a big one. It's a really big one, because people a lot of times don't realize that they're losing money in something, because they feel like, hey, I see the deposit come in. But what they're not seeing is maybe some real estate tax and insurance and things like that should also be factored into that, besides that mortgage payment.
It's sometimes it's scary to look at the books and realize, you might be negative. I know a lot of people shy away from it because they don't understand it. They're scared to be losing money, so they kind of ignore it towards the end when it's too late, or they need to get a loan and they don't have good finances in order. So
that's the biggest one right there.
I've never talked to any small business or entrepreneur type person that likes bookkeeping or accounting. I'm glad you guys are definitely around to help with that. I think it's
Absolutely.
a very small group of people that can handle that or like it.
Well, yeah, and that is a true statement. Maybe we need our head examined, but I think that it's twofold in that space. I think that there's a lot of folks out there that you can get a bookkeeper, you can get somebody to do your your transactional stuff. But again, make sure that you don't know what you don't know, so you do want to make sure that it's going to the right places. And I always have like a couple of bits that I talk about no matter where I'm, who I'm presenting to. But one is, don't pay retail. If you have an accounting software, QuickBooks, for example, go to a pro advisor. Just about everybody who does accounting for a living is a pro advisor. They don't get a kickback, but you get half the price. Hello. I'm like, I don't like to pay full price for anything. But then the other thing I always say is that have somebody look at it. Just because they have the credentials doesn't mean that you can't get something better from somebody else. But I don't care what you do, reconcile your bank accounts. At least if the information's in there and you have to have somebody clean it up, you're not paying for them to do data entry. You don't want to pay my hourly rate for me to do data entry. There's a lot of really great features in QuickBooks, Xero, Wave that they can link to your bank account, so that you don't have to do a lot of the manual entry, so that you don't want to beat your head against the wall as you're doing it. But then, like I said, you're not paying somebody's hourly rate to enter it either.
And I mean, and even at some point, they might not mind it, because they're just concentrating on running their business and letting you guys do what you're good at too. But I totally get it. So there's definitely a place for everyone. I think it's awesome that you're staying up with the daily changes in the CARE Act, and staying up to date, because I think a lot of people get comfortable and they fall behind, and they can't really offer that value add to their clients, because I don't want someone to just do accounting services for me or my CPA, not mention, hey, this is how you can get more money back, or this is how you can get into these loans.
Absolutely.
Because I mean, yeah, accounting people are huge to the team.
Absolutely.
They can help you save so much, or take your business to the next level. That
there it is.
Just by using your skills or knowledge, you don't.
Yeah.
It doesn't even have to directly correlate to doing more work. It's just knowing these loopholes or the law. The money's out there, and you just grab it.
And that's the thing. You're exactly right. And that's, it goes back to, if you are not doing the bookkeeping part of it correctly, chances are you're paying more tax than you have to, which I don't like to give up money.
Right.
But also, there are so many things out there that you can be leveraging right now. For example, in the commercial multifamily space, there's grants available. There's stuff out there for people, especially small businesses right now, and people like that feel good. So just because you're for profit or a real estate investor or a real estate agent does not mean you're not eligible for grants. Does not mean you have to be a nonprofit. There's a ton out there. You just have to look for it. But we don't know what we don't know. And so, that it goes back to whether it's your accounting bits or, leveraging yourself to be able to take advantage of, absorbing some big assets during this time. You want to have those in a good place to be able to, and then to grow and scale. I mean, that's what we do, right? I have a company that I just helped last week. I think we talked about that last week, actually, we talked through it and kind of helped them pivot about their mindset for right now. And she's currently more than double what her normal monthly revenue is, because we shifted a little bit and we are, okay, well, how can we do this online? Let's talk through it. And that's where your good accounting piece can help. If somebody to be more than your trusted advisor and be more than your accountant, but in it with you.
No, yeah, that's huge. I mean, not everyone right now in their business should definitely be thinking about possibly being, conservative. For example, like in the commercial multifamily space, or even any real estate investor, maybe you might want to put some of your capital improvements on hold.
Yeah.
You might not want to increase the rent on your tenants because, again, we're going into some unknown times, and it may be a few months till we see the economic data from all this fallout to see, hey, how long is it going to be till we get back on track and we can start put some more money in our businesses, thus definitely growing. But these loans though, for the people who can take advantage of them, I mean, you got like McDonald's and Taco Bell and everyone else doing it. So you should definitely try if you can.
Yeah. And they're getting bailout money, where this is vastly different in that this is for people under 500 employees. That's most of us, right?
Yeah.
So, let's jump on that and do take advantage of it. You will never get that interest rate again to do something good.
Yeah. Yeah, that's for sure. Well, hopefully we don't. I mean, we definitely,
we don't want it.
Hopefully we don't have to go through this every flu season.
Right.
Prepare for the shutdown. We just prepare. It's like a normal thing now.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I'm a little anxious to see how people are going to adjust when things go back to normal. Did you guys read that Walmart's in the hair dye phase, they called it? People are out of buying the toilet paper and the hand sanitizer. Now they're buying clippers to cut their own hair and color their own hair.
Yeah. A lot of my friends are starting to do that. It's kind of funny. I mean,
leave it to the professionals.
Yeah, the great clips are going to be definitely slammed when it's open again.
Absolutely.
Or you're going to see a lot of bad haircuts around.
I think it's happening already.
Yeah, I've seen a few of my friends. They've already done it. Unfortunately.
Yeah, it's coming.
I won't say names. All righty. Well, anything? I don't know. Is there anything that we're missing? I know we definitely talked about a lot, which is awesome for the people.
Absolutely. And if you guys have any questions or something, and as you're going through some of these loans or whatever, if it comes up that you have to start forecasting or budgeting or something, let me know.
Give them the contact information, name, number, email, all that good stuff, website. I know you're on
Sure.
Facebook.
Yep. The best way to grab me probably is through our website, and it's www.guardianaccountingservices.com. And obviously, yes, I'm all over Facebook and LinkedIn as well. Parris is with 2 R's, Parris.
Mm-hmm.
And our office number is 816-535-8250. And that'll get you anywhere you want to be. But like I said, I know a lot of these are wanting to kind of see how you're going to use funds and what you're going to do with your go forward plan after the immediate with some of these loans, and even what's out there from, that you might be taking advantage of, like maybe through alt cap or something here in Kansas City. And so, if that comes up, holler. I'm teaching a webcast on Saturday about it too, for small business here in Kansas City through the Mid-Continent Library, just because people just don't know. You don't know how to, how many people know how to make a forecast?
Right. You should almost just record it once and just press play. You've probably had to repeat this spiel a few times, but
a little bit. But it's nice to be able to share templates out too for people and just make sure that we support each other. We're the backbone of Kansas City.
Yeah, for sure.
Truthfully.
Alrighty. Well, we'll put that information in the show notes.
Okay.
And I think we're good to go. We appreciate all the information delivery. I'm sure
Absolutely.
It'll all change tomorrow, but hopefully not.
At least by the end of the week.
Yeah. No, it sounds like the majority of it, is pretty spot on what I've seen on the research.
Yeah, the meat's there. It's just going to be a matter of how they present it now.
Right. And then finding creative ways to definitely take advantage of it.
Absolutely. Let's use what's available to us.
All righty.
All right. Thank you both so much.
I appreciate everyone joining. Thanks, everyone.
Absolutely. You guys take care.
Thanks. Bye.